Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Feels like it's been a while since we've done this. That's it. I am slowly getting the channel back on track. I'm going to take a minute to just talk about this a little bit. I apologize for the lack of content and reviews recently. Just life's been crazy. I've been, just in a lot of different places mentally and emotionally recently, but we are getting back on track. I have still been doing a lot of adventures, and I've been using my knives and stuff while I've been kind of slowing down on the channel. So we do have some cool stuff coming up. I just need to, sit down and record videos and talk about stuff. Today we're actually going to be talking about a knife that I have not been using very much, and we'll get into why here in a little bit. This is the HX Outdoors Rock Alpha. Before we get too far into this video, my goodness, shit just falls off my ceiling. This is gotta get my ceiling redone. I've got like stuff everywhere. Before we get too far into this review, big thank you to Zach for sending this knife to the channel. Without him, I would not have taken the opportunity to look at this knife. So huge thank you to him. All right, let's go ahead and get this review going. Start off with our blade length measurements. Sharpened edge is coming in here at just a smidge over 3 3/4 inches. Overall blade length is about 4 1/4 inches. Just a little bit more depending on how far back on the scales you go. So this is not a huge fixed blade. I would call this a, mid-sized fixed blade knife. Let's go ahead and bring out some size comparisons. Start off with our rats. There's the 2, and there's the 1. Yeah, just a little bit bigger than the rat 1. We're not going to do any more folding knives. Let's go ahead and do some fixed blades, though. Let's compare it against the Cold Steel SRK-C. There we go. And let's go ahead and bring out the TKEL Knives Accomplice. Cool. Let's bring out... juggling all kinds of knives right now. Let's bring out a knife I've been using a whole lot recently. This is the Off-Grid Knives Backcountry. And what do I have laying around here? Let's bring out the Exodus. Cool. Okay, so what are we looking at for our materials? Again, I am juggling so many knives off screen. Well, we have a drop point blade of DC53 steel. This is, I've had a little bit of experience with that steel now, with this knife. We've got a full tang construction. We've got G10 scales. The sheath is Kydex with a faux leather belt loop. And we also have a fire starter that is included. So, cool. All right. Let's go ahead and go cut some stuff, shall we? Alrighty, guys. It's review cutting time. It's been thundering a little bit here. Hopefully it's going to rain a little bit. I'll be home by the time that happens. But I had to come out here and do some quick after work review cutting. And the knife that we're going to be doing a review cutting with right now is whoosh-a-bam. I don't know why I treat that like some kind of crazy reveal. Like, you guys already know what's coming. You're already like 4 or 5 minutes into the video. You already seen the title and the thumbnail. Like, you know what it is. It's the HX Outdoors Rock Alpha, I think is the name of this thing. Yeah, but I do treat it like a reveal. Because this is the first time I am filming anything about this knife. Love that sound. Yeah, this is the first thing I'm filming for this knife. I probably will not sit down and film the review for a while because I also want to do some hard use testing on this. But today we're just going to be doing the review cutting. Okay, let's go ahead and finally get this damn show on the road. Let's go ahead and start off with the ergonomics. So the ergonomics, you can definitely tell that someone like sat down and was like designing this knife. Got a weird little swoop here, got a big finger well here, got a big guard, we got a forward finger choil.
The ergonomics are fine. Again, I have not done any hard use testing on this knife yet. I've whittled some wood. I've cut some less resistant mediums, and it works fine for things like that. But I do think that with some prolonged use, or especially like shock use, what the frick am I even saying? With some use that shocks what the impact. If you're batoning with this knife, I could definitely see there being some serious hot spots and some vibrations that are not good. Also, my hands don't fit in this perfectly. I don't have the biggest hands, and so this big finger well here is a little bit too big. I can choke back here, and actually this is pretty comfortable. Get my thumb up on that jimping. If I choke up a little bit, this finger is kind of landing on that point there. You do have the finger troll here that you can choke up into like that if you want to do some whittling or something. That works out all right. The little arc here actually fits in a good spot in my palm. So the ergos are fine. You can see here we've got a little bit of a contour. Kind of hard to see actually, but we do have a little bit of a contour to the scales. So it's definitely not the worst thing I've ever seen in the ergos department. All right, we don't have to talk about the action, so let's go ahead and talk about the carry. All right, so here's what you get out of the box. It rides actually pretty low. I like that. You know, so if you've got a little bit of a gut, you've got some love handles, this will probably stay out of your way a bit. Very standard kind of carry. Let's talk about the sheath a little more in depth, though. I guess I should probably... You do have a snap here. There we go. All right, let's talk about the sheath a little bit, because the sheath actually does have a couple of things going on with it, I guess. Okay, so number one, it's a double sheath, because you also have a spot here for your fire starter. Now, retention for the Kydex. This does not feel like the highest quality Kydex. This is taco style fold over. They give you a little bit of a thumb push off point there, which is nice. It doesn't work the best. Like, it could definitely be better, but it's fine. That's something we're going to talk about here in a second. Now, I'm going to take that out for now. You can hear how much the knife jiggles around. The fit is not great. In fact, I bet... Yeah. Fit is not the best. Retention is not the best. But, you know what? They thought of that, so they gave you this little doohickey right there. So that does solve the retention problem. You do have some holes on here where you could rig up something that could fit on this. Let's see here. You might be able to get a tech lock to work on that. I haven't tried it yet. Maybe I will later. This little piece up here is leather. Screws in. Yeah. The fire starter does not fit into its little spot very good. Wow. Of course that doesn't work when I want it to. All right, just trust me that the retention on the fire starter is not the best. Although it seems to be working right now. Unfortunately, what a tragedy. There we go. So, yeah, the sheath definitely has some issues. It's not my favorite setup here, so we'll talk about that more at the table. Let's go ahead and cut some stuff, shall we? So we have a drop point compound ground blade here of DC53 steel. And our geometry is a little thick. Not gonna lie to you guys, it's a little thick. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Flat grind here, saber grind. This is an outdoor knife. This is not an EDC knife. I'm not expecting it to be the sliciest thing ever. But I will say, I do not think this geometry is all that well done. It's beefy, it's robust, yes. But, I mean, if you guys have seen, we have reviewed knives on this channel that are bigger than this, that cut through the cardboard much better than this. I really don't think we needed this compound grind here at the end. You can already see how thick we are. We have a swedge up here. And a lot of times what swedges do is they relieve some of the resistance from a cut that can come with by meeting the spine. So this is something that we see sometimes with the pool noodle cut test, is when we're going through a pool noodle, sometimes as the spine goes through the foam, it'll start to push the material apart, and it can lead to uneven cuts. Swedges can sometimes help mitigate that. I wish this knife did not have a swedge. I think they could have brought this grind up higher, kept the full thickness to the spine, and then maybe got this edge a little bit thinner. But they did not do that, so oh well. All right, let's do the rope cut. This is typically where, knives with more durable, shall we say, geometries tend to shine. Yep, ate through that like nothing. Let's go ahead and do some push cuts. Let's tilt down right here. Let's do some with just that compound grind. Okay, yeah, that cut through very cleanly. Awesome. Let's try some with the belly. Less good, but that was okay. Yeah, that's fine. Honestly, did not handle that as well as I was expecting it to, which is kind of a shame. Okay, I was really thinking that was where this knife was really going to shine. Okay, let's move on to the pool noodle, and actually, we're not going to use this pool noodle. We're going to use my special fixed blade pool noodle. Forgot to bring this out earlier. This is a big jumbo sized pool noodle that I picked up for fixed blades like this. So let's see what we're working with here. Okay, so that cut felt all right. Let's go a little bit thinner, and actually we might do one off of the blue pool noodle. Okay, so right here, because the tip is so robust, you can see we're really just kind of squishing in before we start to cut. All right, that wasn't too bad. All right. And then I do want to do just one off of the smaller pool noodle. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. All right. Wah! Ah! All right. So, small pool noodle. We did not do great. We did not do horribly, but that's because I kind of adjusted mid-cut. But you can see where we started to tear out before I readjusted and how wonky that went. Doesn't look that bad on this piece, but it did tear out quite a bit. On the bigger piece, we actually did all right. This is a little bit more, I guess, forgiving than the smaller pool noodle. We did all right. Still, we had some hang-ups and a little bit of wonkiness. You can see here where we kind of tore out a little bit. That was actually a little bit better than I was expecting, not counting the blue pool noodle. But I definitely think that this knife could have had better geometry. We'll see how it holds up to the abuse. But yeah, there we go. Let's go ahead and cut over to the abuse.
Alrighty, we're back. Let's get into what I'm liking and not liking about this knife. I gotta be completely honest with you guys. I did the review cutting for this knife a long time ago, and I wanted to do some durability testing with this knife, and I just never got around to it because I just don't find this knife to be all that interesting. And that's one of the reasons why I think I wanted to do the durability test, is just to make the video more interesting. But this is not a knife that connected with me deeply. And actually, we're going to turn off this light and see what that does. Maybe I'm still working on lights in the new place right now, but also probably need to change my bulb. Actually, just a second. All right, that's better. There we go. Yeah, this knife just didn't connect with me really. I did take this knife on a couple adventures. This knife and me went camping a couple times. I did build some fires. You know, I did use this knife a little bit, but not as much as I would have liked. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was putting off this review for so long. But eventually I realized that, you know what? The fact that I am struggling to even carry this knife says a lot about this knife and my feelings on it. So let's go ahead and give it a review. So first of all, let's start with my likes. It's not a bad looking knife. It's interesting. You know, this kind of has a traditional fixed blade meets sci-fi aesthetic, in my opinion. It's a different looking knife, and I can always appreciate that. You know, a mid-sized drop point fixed blade tends to look like every other mid-sized drop point fixed blade. This one does stand out a little bit, so that's pretty cool. I do like that you have the pass-throughs and the screws. That's kind of cool. It's definitely got some character to it. Next up, the ergonomics on this knife are actually pretty nice. You can see here that we kind of arc very slightly and then drop down into this little swoop here up to the thumb ramp. Feels really, really good in hand. The scales are shaped very well. You can see here we've got a little bit of, you know, chamfering in and swelling. We've got good texture here. This G10 feels really, really, not soft, but it feels, it's very hand-feeling and comfortable, right? Sometimes G10 can, you know, have, you know, depending on the texturing, a little bit of a sandpapery feel or a little bit of abrasiveness. This is very grippy while still being super comfortable. So I like that a whole lot. Very, very well thought out handle, in my opinion. This little area here might bother some people if you have hands that are, you know, sized differently than mine. It works out perfectly for me, actually. I've talked about this before on the channel, but I do have kind of odd hands. I've got like regular man-sized palms, but then I have very short, skinny girl fingers. So, you know, sometimes, you know, things that work in my hand might not work in anyone else's hands, but this feels very, very nice for me, so I like that a whole lot. The jimping here is nice. You know, it's subtle, but it's got a good texture. It's placed in the thumb ramp, so it, you know, gives you some good purchase, and it's functional overall. I do like that the knife is full tang. We've got a good thickness here. You know, this knife is not super thick. Let's bring out that SRKC again. We can see here that it is quite a bit thinner than the SRKC, which could be a good thing depending on what you're using the knife for. You know, this makes it a little bit more slicey. But we do have this reinforced tip out here with this compound grind. And the grinding on the blade is very, very nice. We've got a swedge up here. Again, this takes a little bit of thickness away from the spine. Our full thickness of the blade is right here. That gives us a very good cross section. We have a flat grind here to the edge, and then we have another flat grind out towards the tip, thickening our tip up significantly. You can actually see how much thinner we are here than here. And that can be good for a lot of different things. If you're doing a lot of slices, like if you're cutting through cardboard or something, this keeps this area a little bit thin, a little more slicey. Meanwhile, this area up here is going to be nice and thick for things like crunching down on zip ties and stuff. Now, how does that translate to it being an outdoor fixed blade? We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Sharpening choil, you can see here, very good, no complaints. We've got lots of room to sharpen off. In fact, this is a finger choil. The logo there is a little elk, which is kind of cool. We've got some, I'm not sure if that's Chinese or Japanese inscription here. I'm not sure what it says. Probably should look that up, but that's kind of cool. And this knife does have a couple of features that I think are interesting. Number one, coming with a fire or with a ferro rod is cool. I do like that. It's not a bad ferro rod.
You know, got good grip here. It's a good size. It also has an area right here that is for striking that rod. We've got not just a 90-degree spine, but actually an area that has been, you know, specifically beveled out for striking a ferro rod. And we're going to do this right here just because, you know, why not? I'm going to set my whole place on fire. Whoops. And yeah, it throws sparks, you know, pretty nicely. I do like that. That's a cool feature that kind of allows you. I like 90-degree spines because sometimes I think a 90-degree spine also works as jimping. But if you want to have a softer spine, which, I mean, honestly, I could throw sparks off of many parts of this spine, not just this area. I could throw spark off this. I could throw spark off that. But having a designated area for it is kind of nice. It allows you to, if you want to, chamfer, you know, have softer edges on other parts of the spine, which I know some people are a big fan of. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. It also has a little crusher pommel here, which is a neat idea. That's interesting. You know, crush up your pills before you snort them. I mean, crush up your nuts before you eat them. You know, they definitely tried to, you know, get a lot going with this knife, which is, I can applaud their effort. The DC53 steel, this is a steel that I've used several times. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I probably don't have enough experience with it yet. It's a fine steel. It's basically a modified D2 from what I gather, and it works fine. You know, it's an okay steel. The knife itself cuts, you know, fairly well. Yeah, we're going to leave it at that. Let's go ahead and go on to my complaints. Number one, because of this crusher pommel back here, this knife is way too heavy in the back. The balance point for this knife is, focus up, about there. That's not good. And this knife does pull in the hand significantly. This knife almost feels like it's weighted more like a fighting knife. You know, you want a little bit of pull in the back so that your tip comes up and helps you, you know, with your thrusting. But for an outdoor or an EDC knife, that doesn't work all that nicely. You want your weight a little more forward because you want to be able to have excellent control over that blade. It's every part of the blade, not just, you know, aligning the tip. You want to be able to control every part of your edge. So I'm not a huge fan of the balance. In fact, the weight on this knife overall is just not what I would expect from a knife of this size. I'm not someone that normally complains about weight, but I am kind of picky about my weight on my fixed blades because I use my fixed blades hard. I take my fixed blades on backpacking trips. I take them camping. I take them on mountain climbs. I have very specific tasks that I need my fixed blade to perform, and I want my fixed blade to pack as much power into as easy a carry package as possible. This knife doesn't do that. Not by a long shot. This knife to me just feels clunky and heavy for its size. And I'm not even sure what this knife is intended for. Again, this thin blade here is cool, you know, for slicing and stuff, but they give you a very reinforced blade here. And so I'm thinking, and there's not a whole lot of blade. So I was thinking while I was carrying this knife, is this the kind of knife that I would use to skin an animal? No, because of that reinforced tip. Because they thicken everything out towards the tip, and this, you know, the belly part of the blade here is what I really want to be using for skinning, that kind of makes this a non-ideal skinner. You could do it, of course, but it's not ideal. Okay, so the blade here, you know, with this, you know, saber flat grind, it's okay on wood. It's fine, but it's nothing like spectacular. The other thing is I don't like this big finger choil here. Not sure why we needed this. I would much prefer they just brought the edge further back, giving me more edge. I mean, we're already taking away a lot of edge from this knife. On
on an outdoor knife, I'd prefer to have as much edge as I can get because I'm going to be beating this knife pretty hard. Parts of the edge are probably going to get damaged or chipped. And of course, I can do field repairs, but it's nice to have, as much usable edge as possible. This feels more like a blade that I would have liked to see on an EDC fixed blade. A robust tip for, maybe, again, zip ties or shit like that. Man, I am not liking the lighting today. I have to work on that. This grind here, I think they could make it even thinner. Like this, the knife is not super thin behind the edge. They could have made this even thinner, maybe by not doing this swedge here. And it would have been a great EDC knife, but the knife is so heavy and big that it doesn't make sense for an EDC fixed blade. And the sheath doesn't make sense for an EDC fixed blade. I hate this sheath. I absolutely hate this. Hate this sheath. So, first of all, the retention is fine on the blade, on the knife, right? That jiggling that you hear is the ferro rod, which is kind of in there. No push-off point. You have this little, smoothed area there, but it does not work as a good push-off point. And because you have this big dangler here in the back, it's really hard to grab a hold of this knife and get it out of the sheath while it's on your belt. Also, this little dangler system, this is faux leather. I'm not sure why they decided to go with this method of carry. You can rig something else up. You've got some different options here, but the out of the box method of carry is just not great. And again, this knife, for being a small knife, has a huge footprint. You really notice when you're carrying this knife. I noticed that when I was hiking, this was just slapping around. I am actually a fan of danglers a little bit. I love the way this knife carries because when I'm walking through brush and stuff, the knife can kind of move a little bit and not get hung up. And I have something that's like, let's see here, something that's like a more solid attachment where it keeps the knife really close to your side, really rigid. Sometimes branches can get in between the handle and your body and get stuck and just cause issues. So I do like a little bit of mobility with my knife sheath, but this knife just felt horrible on my belt. It was so bad. Again, the fire rod, the ferro rod, actually this is magnesium, but whatever. This is cool having them both on there, but I really don't trust the retention of this rod. And it's so rattly and annoying, and I just don't like it all that much. And so all of this together made it so that I wasn't really carrying this knife that much because, number one, I didn't really know what to use a knife for. It was it felt a little bit too small to be a dedicated survival knife, but it's too big to be EDCable. And the sheath doesn't lend it to be, comfortably EDCable, in my opinion. The little crusher back here on the back, we talked about how it messes up the weight. I have no use for this. I would never use that, so, it's kind of a useless feature for me. I wish it wasn't there. And again, it makes the whole thing super, super heavy. I also want to point out just really quick. Actually, we'll talk about that here in a minute. Now, I was willing to forgive all of these problems, and I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to make a video where I do some hard use testing of this knife because I was thinking to myself, this has got to be like a $50 knife. DC53 steel, it's nothing, incredible. This has got to be a $50 knife. No, depending on the finish you get, this knife is $85 to $90. Is it worth that? Absolutely not. Let me show you the packaging. I don't normally talk about packaging, but oh my goodness, this is overkill. This is way overkill. I can't even tell you how overkill this is. And it's super, super annoying. Just, if that's where the money is going, if that's where the price is going, I will pass.
So let's go ahead and go on to my final conclusions. Final conclusions, this is a knife that just did not speak to me. This is a knife that I could not find a good use for. There's a lot of things that I would change about this knife. Number one, I would change the sheath. Give it a push-off point. Either get rid of this dangler or get a different system set up. For the size of the knife, honestly, this is a knife that you could have like a tech lock on and that'd be fine. Fix the ferro rod sheath issue thing. This is a good idea. I think it just needs better execution. The knife itself, I would bring the edge further back. Give as much usable edge as possible. I'd get rid of the nut crusher on the end, bring the balance back, or bring the balance forward a little bit. Then I would decide, do I want this knife to be a more EDC friendly knife, or do I want this to be a survival knife? If I want to be a survival knife, I would actually beef it up just a little bit. If I want it to be an EDC knife, I would thin it out just a little bit. And when I say EDC knife, I'm thinking also like an EDC fixed blade in the terms of, this is something that I can carry around the ranch, right? When I grew up on a cattle ranch, something that I would carry around on the ranch for cutting rope, opening hay bales, pallet straps, things like that. A knife that, might see some heavy duty use, maybe some mild prying and stuff with this tip, with this reinforced, compound ground tip. Yeah, I'll do some prying tasks and stuff. That's kind of what I'm thinking EDC is, like just a work knife rather than a survival or camping knife. That's the other thing that I should mention is I didn't really think this knife fit into a camp knife role. It's not great for food prep. Whittling and cutting rope and stuff you can do with any other kind of knife, so it just didn't really fit into any of my use scenarios. And then the price is just, in my opinion, outrageous. I would not pay $90 for this knife. I wouldn't. The fit and finish is good, right? The fit and finish is fine, except on the sheath. Again, like this fake leather, this feels very cheap, and this is just gross. But the fit and finish overall is fine. The knife is built well, but I would not pay $90 for it. The best thing I can say about this knife is the ergonomics are very well thought out. And even then, the ergonomics are kind of being shot in the foot by the fact that the knife is so butt heavy. So this is a knife that I really, I just kept thinking, okay, I need to spend more time with it. I need to do blah, 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 blah. I need to, do a destruction test or something. But at the end of the day, the knife is just so boring and uninteresting that really, I just kind of lost interest in it. And I gotta be honest too, once I found out the price was $90, I was like, okay, yeah, I don't even want to do a destruction test or anything, because that right there is like, nah, I'm not gonna recommend this knife. And so that's gonna be my final conclusions. Yeah, I do not recommend it. If you're looking for a, 4.5 inch fixed blade, this is not where you want to go. I am sorry. All right, but that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Big shout out to my channel members at the Cowboy level. I appreciate everything they do for the channel. If you want to become a member and support me directly, there are links down below where you can do that. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.